Jayam Vishnupad Saramahamsa Paravacharya. Also that to Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Subhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nandakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Friends, say Maho Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shidwaita Gadadha, Shivasati Gaur, Bhakta Vrinda Jaya, Shri Shri Radha Krishna, Gopadas, Shyam Kun Radha Kavanta, Giri Govardhan Jaya, Vrindavan Jaya, Charam Jaya, Ekada Swami Jaya, Yamuna Jaya, Shivani Tulasi Devi Jaya, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Jaya. Go, President. All glories to the Assembly. All glories to the Assembly. All glories to the Assembly. Glories to Shri Guru Gauranga Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nrsimha Bhagavan ki jai. So, yeah, that will happen.
Everyone can please stand up to Tulasi Saligram So we can start the initiation. You have to start the initiation.
Because we're not going to have any like marriage ceremony or anything like that.
You can change the garden.
When you change the garlands. It's a very short marriage ceremony.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Tulasi Saligram,
There has to be some vows. You tell, just do the normal vows.
maybe you can.
No, you do. I've already done that. Shield, Saligram, accept Tulasi is your wife?
Who's
The mother and father?
We haven't.
There's cousin.
Oh, the servant. Not the mother, the servant.
At least we should have some little ceremony.
Okay, so the newly married Adipurish Prabhu and Mataji can represent Tulsi and Saligram. Please come.
Oh my God. They just had their engagement today. That's why he looks like a prince. As Prabhupada said one time, king for a day, slave for a lifetime. What? You know I was going to say that. So, yeah, don't turn your backs to the meetings. So there should be like taking of the vows, just very quickly.
Yes.
You shall.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So, Riddhi, you can stand on this. Prabhu, you can stand. Shri Shaligram, do you accept Srimati Tulsi Maharani as your wife and promise to protect her?
I do.
Keep her in Christian consciousness.
Srimati Tulsi Maharani, do you accept as your suitable husband? Shri Shaligram Shila.
I do.
Very good.
Hare
Om Narayana Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Om Mahadevaya Cha Vidmahe Vishnu Patnaya Cha Dhimahi Tanno Lakshmi Prachodayat. Om Swastino Govindo Swastino Achyutanto Sasuneva Vasudeva Vishnu Dadatu Swastino Narayana Narovai Swastino Padmanabha Purushottama Dadatu Swastino Vishwekshano Vishwesharaha Swastino Rishikesho Hare Dadatu Swastino Vainekyo Harihi Swastino Anjana Sutta Hanur Bhagavato Dadatu Swasti Swasti Sumangale Kesho Mahan Shri Krishna Sachidananda Gana Sarveshwaresho Dadatu. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Shri Shri Shaligram Shila ki
Jai.
Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki
Jai.
Okay, now pronounce you man and wife. Eternally.
Hare Bol.
Really eternal. This is the last day of the Kartik month. And so to have an initiation the last day of Kartik month and to celebrate the Tulsi Saligram. And for those who are interested in getting married, next month we start with the Katyayani Brat. So Katyayani Brat means for 1 month, you go bathing in the river. We have a river here. Everyone's heard of the Katyayani Brat? For what, all the young girls, and you worship Durga for a month. And actually the Durga that you worship is Yogamaya in this particular case. You worship Yogamaya for a month and you bathe in the river here, it's very cold. And you only eat like Havishya, with unspiced food for a whole month, once a day, and guaranteed you'll get a husband at the end of the month. Well, not guaranteed, but anyway, that's what the gopis did. They worshiped Krishna like that because they wanted Krishna as a husband. And what Krishna did is quite quite interesting after that month was over, which we can't speak about. I guess we can speak about it. Krishna, that's the time that Krishna stole all the clothes from the gopis and made them come out of the river. And that indicated that he became their husband at that particular juncture. So that's very much connected to the stealing of the gopis' clothes, very much connected to Katyayani Vrat at the end of the month. So it works. I actually have one disciple who did Katyayani Vrat. I told her not to do it. And then at the end of the month, she was married. So it works. Actually, it's true. One has faith and one executes these rituals, understanding Krishna is the source of all benedictions, then Krishna will bless them. So, any volunteers in this month? No. Okay. So now we'll proceed. Is everybody here who's getting initiated?
Should they sit on their respective positions?
Well, everyone should sit in their respective positions.
So all the initiates, you can come forward. So maybe probably you can say that. Mati? Mati, you can sit.
I think we're missing some people.
Please, Marana.
Yes. Okay.
Marana is. Oh. Please, Mati.
Yeah, once you do the purification promises. What? Exciting day. Yeah, everyone's here?
Yes, Madam. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so we'll start with the purification. So everyone has Ashwana cups. So you can take 3 drops of water in your right hand. So please take 3 drops of water in your right hand. And looking at the water, please repeat. Om Keshavaya Namaha. Om Keshavaya Namaha. You sit to the base. You rinse your hand once. Okay, again 3 drops of water in your right hand. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Om Madhavaya Namaha. Next. All fold it. Om अपवित्रा पवित्रो वा सर्वावस्था कृतोऽपि वा यस्मरेत् पुण्डरीकाक्षं सः भय्या अभ्यन्तरः शुचिः श्री विष्णु ओम अपवित्रा पवित्रो वा सर्वावस्था ततोऽपि वा यस्मरेत् पुण्डरीकाक्षं सः भय्या अभ्यन्तरः शुचिः श्री विष्णु Now we recite the Brahma Samhita. So you can take a copy and pass it over. So we have some more copies behind if you like.
Would you like to have coffee?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So everyone, we can start. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakarasarma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Viteshu Surabhira Vipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahmaseryamanam Govindamadi Purusham Namaham Bhajami Venam Panantam Aravinda Dalayakaksham Bharavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarbhakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindamadi Purusham Namaham Bhajami Aloka Chandra Kalasatmanamaya Vamsi Ratnangatam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Privangalalitam Niyata Prakasham Govindamadi Purusham Namaham Bhajami Anami Yasya Sakalendriya Vritrimanti Pashyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujjvala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Namaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anandam Anandarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Durlabham मां प्रतिजयस्तुवन्ति गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आनन्दचिन्मयः सप्रतिभाविकासि तावीर्य एव निजरूपतया कलाभि गोलोक एव निवसत्यनिरामभूतो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि प्रेमाञ्जनचुरितभक्तिविलोचनेन सन्तः सदैव हृदयेषु विलोकयन्ति यं श्यामसुन्दरमचिन्त्य गुणस्वरूपं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि रामादिमूर्तिषु कलानियमेन तिष्ठान् नानावतारमकरोतु वनेषु किन्तु कृष्णः स्वयं समभवत् परमं पुमान्यो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यस्य प्रभा प्रभवतो जगदण्डकोटि कोटिश्वशेषवसुधादिविभूतिभिन्नं तद्ब्रह्मनिष्कलमनन्तमशेषभूतं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि मायानि यस्य जगदण्डशतानि सूत्रे त्रैगुण्यतद्विषयवेदविदायमाना सत्त्वावलम्बि परसत्त्वविशुद्धसत्त्वं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आनन्दचिन्मयरसात्मतया मनःषु यः प्राणिनां प्रतिपदं स्मरतामुपेत्य लीलायितेन भुवनानि जयत्यजस्रं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि गोलोकनाम्नि जनाम्नि गले च तस्य देवी महेश हरिधामेषु तेषु तेषु ते प्रभावनिजयाभिहितश्च येन गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि सृष्टिस्थितिप्रलयसाधनशक्तिरेका छायेव यस्य भुवनानि विवर्ति दुर्गा इच्छानुरूपमपि यस्य च चेष्टते सा गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि क्षीरं यथा विकारविशेषयोगात् सञ्जायते न हि कदा प्रतिपस्ति हेतो यशम्भुतामपि कदा समुपैति कार्यात् गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि दीपाचलेव हि दशान्तरमभ्युपेत्य दीपायते विविधहेतुसमानधर्म यस्वागृहेव हि च विष्णुतया विभाति गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यकारणानवजले भजति स्म योगा निद्रामनन्तजगदण्डसरोमकूपा आधारशक्तिमवलम्ब्य परं स्वमूर्तिं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यस्यैकनिश्वसितकालमतावलम्ब्य जीवन्ति लोमविदजा जगदण्डनाथा विष्णुर्महान् सलिलयस्य कलाविशेषो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि भास्वान् यथा स्म सकलेषु निजेषु तेजा स्वीयं कियात् प्रकटयत्वमितत्र ब्रह्मायणेश जगदण्डविधानकर्ता गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यत्पादवल्लभयुगं विनिधाय कुम्भ वन्दे प्रणामसमये सगणाधिराजा विघ्नान् विहन्तुमलमस्य जगत्त्रयस्य गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं Tasya Kalasatma Manasi Jagattrayani Yasmat Bhavanti Vibhavanti Vishanti Yamcha Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakshuresha Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Asesha Teja Yasya Gnayabhamati Samhrita Kala Chakro Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmotapava Nichaya Sutayastapamsi Brahmadikita Patagavadayascha Jiva Yaddattamatya Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasundra Gopa Madhavendra Mahosvakarma Bandhana Rupa Phalabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Cha Bhakti Bhajam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayani Niti Vasalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sekha Bhavai Sanchitya Tasya Sadisham Tanuma Purete Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Bhagarama Purusha Kalpatayo Rumaho Meshinta Manikana Mairoyam Amritam Karharanam Natyam Kamanamapi Kamshipriya Sati Chiranandam Jyoti Paramapi Narasatsam Lapicha Sayaka Shirati Shavati Sudati Gascha Sumahan Nimeshadakyo Prajati Nahi Yatrapi Samaya Bhaje Shveta Deepam Tamahanu Golokamitriyam Vidantaste Santa Siti Vigata Charakativae Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Okay, you ready for the lecture?
Yes, madam.
You did the almost public address?
Yes, we did.
Okay. So, make
So,
it easy for you.
all devotees can turn towards me. Don't have your back.
So, Om Adana Tamilam Vasya Gananjana Shulakaya Chakshunam Nidikam Yena Tasmai Shivaya Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master's divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torch light of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So we are completely dependent on His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada. So, first I'd like to talk about the Tulasi Saligram Vivad. Really quickly, I'm going to tell the story because I think that's appropriate on this particular day. And just to refer to my notes, because it's going to go rather quickly, I'm going to leave some of the parts out of this. So, there was a great king named Dharmadvaja, and his wife Madhavi gave birth to an expansion of Lakshmi after 100 celestial years in the lady's womb. Wow. And her name was Tulsi. And she had lotus flower mark on the foot. Her eyes were like lotus. Her lips were like mimba fruit. Palms, the soles of the palms were red and navel deep. And 3 folds in the stomach, a halo, and a white complexion. Champaka. That's interesting. Then Tulsi, and we'll tell the story of why Tulsi got there in the beginning. She goes to Badrinath to perform austerities to get Krishna as her husband, and she does the austerities for 100,000 celestial years. That's a lot. For 20,000 years, fruits and water. 30,000 years, just dry leaves. If you want Krishna as your husband, you have to do that. 40,000 years, air. 10,000 years, nothing, and on one leg. And after that period of time, Lord Brahma came And it was explained, she explained that in the past she was a gopi, it was a partial expansion of Srimati Radharani. And she got intimate with Krishna and Radharani got angry. And Krishna said, this is my arrangement. You will take birth in India and marry my expansion, Narayan. So Brahma told her that you will marry Shankachuta first, who is Sudam, who was attracted to you in Goloka, and you are both will be Jati Smarna, which means you'll remember your past life in Goloka Vrindavan, or past nature in Goloka Vrindavan. And Sankachuta will perform austerities to get you as his wife, and later on, Narayan will accept you, and you will become the Tulsi plant known as Vrindavani. Actually, all this was predicted for her. And Tulsi asked for a mantra so that she wouldn't be afraid of Radharani, because she'd been previously cursed by Radharani. So she got the 16-letter Radha mantra, and by that chanting of the mantra, she will become dear to Radharani, and Radharani will approve of everything. So then Tulsi worshipped Radha for 12 years, but then Kamadev came to her. Kamadev is Cupid, and he has his arrows of form, touch, taste, smell, etc. And when he hits you, you're finished. So, anyway, as a sannyasi, it's not appropriate to talk about it. So Kamadev came to her, and she saw Shankachuta in the dream. And the interesting thing about Shankachuta, here's his family history. He was Sudam before, but he was born, here's the family. Kashyapa and Danu had one son named Viprachiti. His son was Damba, was the devotee of Vishnu. Damba went to the forest to perform austerities for 100,000 years, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. An effulgence came from his head, and all the demigods came there, and Vishnu went to Damba and said, what blessing do you want to have? Damba said, I want an invincible son who's your devotee, it conquers everything. And he got the blessing. And the wife of Damba became pregnant, and Sudama was born as Shankachuta. And so Shankachuta was performing austerity. Lord Brahma appeared before him and blessed him and said that you will be invincible to all the demigods and marry Tulsi. And Lord Brahma gave him this amulet of Sri Krishna, which is known as Sarva Mangalaya, and instructed him that if you keep this amulet with you, you will never die. And you should also go and marry Tulsi. So he approaches Tulsi, who is performing austerities, and Tulsi tests him. She says, don't you understand? You can't trust me. The nature of women. And then he responds, that is only certain women in passion and ignorance. So sometimes people use these different expressions as a means to discriminate against ladies, isn't it? But actually, there are women in goodness, passion, and ignorance, and there are men in goodness, passion, and ignorance. And I don't trust men who are in ignorance or passion either, because they're dangerous, and they drink too much. So, Lord, and not water. Lord, so Sankachuta said, Lord Brahma sent me, let's get married immediately. And they had this very easy marriage called the Gandharva marriage. And he said, actually, I'm Sudam, and you're Tulsi from the spiritual world. Brahma appeared, and Brahma said, let's do the Gandharva marriage. And in the future, you will both return to the spiritual world, and Tulsi will get Krishna as her husband. So the couple enjoyed for many, many years. It's described like 4,300,000 years. That's a lot of years. And he gets complete control of the heavenly kingdoms. The gods, there's the demigods, all go to Lord Brahma. Brahma goes to Shiva. They go to Lord Narayan and Vaikuntha, and Lord Narayan explains everything. He explains about Shankachuta and Shankachuta Sudam. He was cursed by Radha because Krishna one time was flirting with another girl, Viraja. And Radha cursed her to become the river, Viraja. And Radha started yelling at Krishna. This is the left-handed nature of Srimati Radharani. She can even chastise Krishna. Krishna remained silent, but Sudam, defending his friend, started rebuking Radharani, and therefore Radharani cursed him to be born in the womb of a demon. These are all pastimes. try to understand when people come from the spiritual world, they come to serve Krishna because Krishna likes to do pastimes in this material world with his devotees. Krishna does not fight with ordinary rascals usually. He loves to interact and exchange these mellows. The Nectar Devotion describes about the 7 indirect mellows of rasas and the 5 direct mellows of rasas. And Krishna loves to do that with his devotees. Otherwise, if someone's not a devotee, many times he just treats him like Kalyavana was treated. Kalyavana was just a plain old rascal, a devotee rascal. And Krishna wanted to kill him, but Krishna didn't kill him directly. He lured him into a cave where this great fighter was, Muchukunda, and Muchukunda killed him by looking at him because Kalyavana woke Muchukunda up from his long sleep. Anyway, that's a different story. So anyway, Sudama was crying, and Radharani actually felt sad that she had cursed Sudama. And she tried to stop it, but Krishna explained, actually, this is my plan, so this pastime will take place. And actually, in less than a moment, you're going to return anyway. Now, the interesting thing is the time we experience in this world is completely different than the spiritual time. In fact, in the spiritual world, time is absent, or the material time is absent. It's prominent by its absence. So there's no question of actually being gone from the spiritual world. It's like this, something like that. So, anyway, just like when we go back to the spiritual world, or let's say if we go back to the spiritual world, hopefully, we won't actually consider this to be of any time. Although it's a long time now. When you're suffering, things take a long time. Like when you go to the dentist, then to say this will just take 5-10 minutes and it's not going to be any pain, and I think we've all experienced it doesn't take 5 minutes. It takes 5 minutes with Lord Brahma. So it's very painful. So anyway, so he goes, and so in the meantime, Lord Narayan gives this trident to Lord Shiva to kill Shankachuta. Shiva gets ready to attack Shankachuta, and he sends his envoy to challenge Shankachuta. So Lord Shiva is accompanied by Kartikeya, the Vasus, the Adityas, Indra, Agni, and even Bhadra Kali. And he's challenged Shankachuta. Shankachuta informs Tulasi, his wife, that we're going to have a battle. And she sees the future coming. But he preaches to her and tells her that in the future, don't worry, we'll be back with Radha and Krishna. So he installs his son, Shuchandra, as king, and he goes out with 300,000 Akshahini forces. That's a lot of people. And so Shankachuta comes out and he sees Lord Shiva in meditation, bows to him, and he gets blessings from Lord Shiva and Bhadrakali. Lord Shiva explains the past of Shankachuta. You are a Vaishnava and you should return. Says to Lord Shiva, he should not favor the demigods. Let's fight. And then the war begins. First, the demigods are defeated. Then Kartikeya and Kali enter the battle, and Kali hurls all sorts of weapons. But all of them fail. Shankachuta does not fire any weapons at Kali. And she gets her trident ready to kill Shankachuta. But Kali is stopped by a voice and reminds her of Lord Brahma's boon, and she desists and devours millions of demons in the meantime. Oh my God. Wow. And the only demons that were alive were those that crawled out of her mouth while she was chewing. This is a story in the Padma Purana. Very interesting story. Lord Shiva enters the battle. Shankachuta offers obeisances, and they fight for 1 year. Lord Shiva grabs his trident. A heavenly voice tells him, don't. I'm reminding you that Shankachuta has to be bereft of his amulet, and the chastity of Tulsi has to be broken or violated. Shiva wants to see Vishnu. Vishnu appears, agrees to help, and then he takes the form of an old Brahmin and begs Shankachuta for the amulet. And Shankachuta, being very Vedic, gives him the amulet. Then Lord Vishnu takes the form of Shankachuta and goes to Tulsi's palace, saying that Lord Brahma broke up the fight and mediated between us, so everything's all right. And then has a relationship with Tulsi Devi and breaks her chastity in this particular case. And in the meantime, Lord Shiva fires his trident, which is named Vijaya, which is as bright as 100 suns, 14,000 cubits long. A cubit is like this, 100 cubits wide. And Shankachuta sees it coming. He goes into a yoga posture, meditates on Krishna's feet. He's killed, and his bones are tossed in the sea, and the bones ultimately become conscious. Holy conscious, water in the conscious, sacred like a sacred river. It's offered to all except for Lord Shiva. A conch blown indicates Lakshmi is there, except by people who eat meat. The people who eat meat, they blow a conch shell, Lakshmi is annoyed and goes elsewhere. Remember that. Stay away from conch shells, unless you follow the regular principles. So, the conch indicates Hari and Lakshmi are there, and all inauspicious things disappear. So Sudam regains his original form with jewels, flute, chariot, coward boys, and they all fly back to Goloka. And Radha and Krishna are very happy to see him back, took him on their laps. And Tulsi discovers the deception she's been subjected to, and she gets very angry. She says, "Who are you? I shall curse you." Lord Vishnu assumes his real form as Lord Vishnu. Tulsi says, "You are like a stone." And here's the quote. I'm just going to read the direct quote. She says, "O Lord, you are like a stone. You are merciless. You violated my chastity by deception, and by this means you have killed my husband. O Lord, you are merciless. Yes, your heart is like a stone. Therefore I curse you to become a stone. Those who call you holy are undoubtedly wrong. Your devotee committed no offense, yet for the sake of others you killed him. Why?" And then Lord Narayan explains everything, and then there's so many benedictions we don't have time to read. One worships the Saligram Shila, or one worships Tulsi, one gets so many benedictions. So this is a pastime. So one may ask, what about all this cruelty and violating chastity and all these other things? Why are devotees subject to all these difficulties? Because they're tasting rus. Remember one thing. All these devotees, that is Tulsi and Shankachuta, Sudam, are actually remembering Krishna at every minute. And Krishna and the devotees enjoy different rasas. And now we're talking about indirect rasas, such as being afraid, being angry. Like you see Radharani in the spiritual world, she's getting angry. And the coward boys, sometimes they're afraid when Krishna jumps on the heads of the Kaliya serpent, or he goes into the water first, and to attack the Kaliya serpents. So the devotees enjoy these. One may ask, why? How can you actually enjoy being afraid? Well, I remember when I was young, my parents would take me to a horror house. Where was the horror house? Washington, D.C. No, the horror house. Sorry about that. In an amusement park, and you have all these ghosts jump out at you. Has anyone been to any of those things here? I'm sure some of you have gone to Disneyland or Disney World and you've seen them. And it was fun being afraid, or going on a roller coaster. It was fun being afraid. And then sometimes you see a film and you get angry. So enjoyment means to experience these different emotions. And in the spiritual world and in connection with Krishna, even in this world, the emotions are always very intense. But they're always centered on Krishna. Remember, Tulsi is always thinking of Krishna. She's Jati Smarna. And Shankachuta is always thinking of Krishna. There's no question. There's no question of anything else happening. So even these devotees getting angry with Krishna and cursing with Krishna is enjoyment for Krishna and enjoyment for the devotee who's doing it. Just like we have devotees who did the Lalita Madhava the other day. And Lalita Madhava, there's some anger there. Rukmini, those of you who are in the Lalita Madhava, was getting extremely angry because Satyabhama was there and she was fooling around with Krishna in Nava Vrindavan, right? But she's enjoying that anger. In this material world, when we get angry at someone, because anyway, they shouldn't fool around with anybody, But if we get angry with someone because they do something, it's not enjoyable, it's misery. We shouldn't really equate the experiences we have in this world with the experiences they have in the spiritual world. Although they appear similar, but in the spiritual realm, and even when the devotees come down to the material realm, this is all spiritual emotions, spiritual bodies, spiritual interactions, and all completely 100% centered on Krishna. It's very important to understand this. So this pastime is a source of ecstasy both for Tulsi, Shankachuta, and Lord Vishnu. It's not that any of them are suffering. Even when they cry being cursed by Radha, this is actually enjoyment. Now, how that is, we cannot understand as long as we're here in this material world, in material consciousness. But it's a very relishable pastime for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let me turn off my phone so people can't text me. So, now we're going to talk about initiation. So we have several devotees taking initiation, several devotees I'm giving initiation to, and several devotees who've taken initiation from Radha Govinda Maharaj, and who'll be taking their vows today. So what is initiation? Of course, the word initiation sometimes means to begin. But one's actual devotional service begins with the initial faith that one has in Krishna consciousness or in the existence of God. Ado Shraddha. And that's the first point. That one has to have faith at least that there's God. That's why Srila Prabhupada stressed very much the scientific preaching to convince people that life actually comes from God, designed by God, rather than life comes from matter. And if any of you are interested, I've done several presentations on this, scientific presentations on this. Because that's the initial faith. Once one believes that there's God, then Brahmanda Brahmate Konna Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Bhai Bhakti Lata Bij. Then what happens? God, and really prays to God, not only believes in the existence, but prays to become a servant, God sends his representative. I remember before I became a member of the Krishna Conscious Movement, I was about 17. I didn't join at 17, but I would pray to God regularly, please God, let me see or understand who you are, and let me serve you. And then God, who, if you don't know his name, is Krishna, he sent Prabhupada. You know, one day I was listening to the radio, and there was Prabhupada singing, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. My whole life changed at that particular point. So nothing happens by accident. Not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of God. So by the mercy of the Lord, one gets Guru, and by the mercy of Guru, one gets the Lord, one gets Krishna. So anyway, Ado Shraddha. And then by association, people ask, how do you develop faith? By association. Ado Shraddha. Tata Saru Sango Tam. So the faith is just initial faith in the beginning in the existence of God, or maybe in the Vedic literatures. And then by Sadhu Sangota, the faith becomes strengthened. These are different stages in devotional service. And then by the faith being strengthened, one takes the sadhus as one's role models, or a role model, if it happens to be singular rather than plural. And then one does what? Bhajana Kriya. And part of this Bhajana Kriya, very important part, is taking initiation. Now, why is initiation important? Because you've already gotten sadhu sangha and shraddha, little shraddha. It's important because initiation represents commitment. That's why, it's beginning, it's a commitment, just like marriage. Nowadays, of course, in America and even in India, people don't take their commitments so seriously, or people don't even make commitments. I was speaking to one of my disciples who's getting married tomorrow, and he found a nice girl to get married to. He didn't want to marry anyone from the city in India. He's in India. He said because none of the girls are making commitments, or they have this bad Western-style training there. Nothing wrong with the West, but in the West we do not stress commitments. Promises are made to be broken. We cross our fingers every time we make a promise, so we don't have to keep it. So people just don't take it seriously. So initiation, the essence of initiation, or the essence of a marriage or an engagement, which we had today for some nice devotees, is a commitment, a promise, which is dridapata, an unbreakable promise or commitment that, I'm going to. So this is actually the beginning, like the beginning of marriage is the commitment. It's not just like the breaking of the wine bottles. Sorry. It's like we had a devotee here go to a marriage, not a Hare Krishna marriage, and people were, drunk. So that has nothing to do with it. And even we have so many rituals during initiation and during marriage, but the essence is we're making a promise before the Supreme Personality of Godhead, before the devotees, and that's why it's called an initiation, because it really strengthens it. And if one takes a vow to do something, makes a promise to do something, it keeps one on the straight and narrow path. We vow. So, all right, so the vow of initiation obviously is the 4 regulated principles, and I think everybody knows them. I think just about everybody here follows them. No intoxication, no obedience, no gambling, no illicit sex. And the chanting of 16 rounds, and as Prabhupada would do it during every initiation, he would talk about the 10 offenses against chanting. That is, and I'll go really quickly through them because it's important for the devotees to avoid these offenses. Of course, the first offense is to blaspheme the devotees of the Lord, who dedicate their lives to propagation of the holy name of the Lord, because that's a mad elephant offense. If you're cultivating devotional service, it's like a bhakti lata beach. It is a bhakti lata beach. It's like taking an elephant into your garden and just like destroying everything. That whole creeper of devotion that's meant to pierce the coverings of the material universe and enter into the spiritual world. So the second offense is, which some people here may be subjected to, which they consider the names of the demigods to be equal to or independent of the holy name of Lord Vishnu. Demigods are servants of Lord Vishnu, Ekaleshwara Krishna, Adasabda Vrija. Third offense is to disobey the order of the spiritual master. One should not follow the spiritual master blindly. One has a right to discuss different things and present the point that you can't do a particular thing, like if Prabhupada said, you go to the North Pole and preach to the penguins, or South Pole, and preach to the penguins, you could have some objections to that. One time a devotee, it's an interesting story, Prabhupada was sending one devotee to China, and I'm not going to tell the whole story. He said, you should go to China because, anyway, this devotee was doing certain things in America. Anyway, I think you know the story. And he said, China, Prabhupada, basically he was objecting to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada ultimately laid down the law and said, all right, if you don't want to go to China, all you can do is stay here in Mayapur and chant Hare Krishna. I'm taking all the other service away from you. So he agreed to go to China. And because of that, we have a big Chinese mission right now with so many millions or maybe hundreds of thousands of Chinese devotees. So one should obey the spiritual master, but one has a right to have a discussion with the spiritual master. And then one next offense is to blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures in pursuance of the Vedic version. And we avoid these offenses. These are things to avoid. You can also take all these offenses in a positive way. Instead of blaspheming, you should glorify. Instead of blaspheming devotees, you should glorify devotees. The Vedic literatures. You should serve the spiritual master, follow his instructions. Anyway, so there's a positive side, a way to take each offense, instead of just taking it as a negative or a do not. And then the next offense is to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. They're not imagination. Krishna's there in his holy names. Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Puna Shivalicha Mukto Dinatlam Namanamino. The next offense is to give some crazy interpretation of on the holy names. There are bona fide interpretations, like Krishna means to attract, Na means Ananda, and also to negate the material miseries. That's true. Krishna, and is also non-different from Krishna. Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. And the next offense is to commit sins on the strength of chanting It's like sometimes the Catholics, they have this confession once a week. Or in the religion that I was brought up in, we have confession once a year. It's actually better. That's more efficient, if you can just save up all your sins for once a year. So, of course, we should still confess to God, but that doesn't mean we keep doing the same thing, confess and are forgiven, or just keep chanting and think we're going to be forgiven. So one has to be very careful not to commit sins on the strength of chanting. The next offense is to consider chanting to be like other rituals, like karma kanja rituals, etc. And even in Krishna consciousness, we do many things that can be considered rituals, like our style of dress. These are all not essential. You can find pure devotees of the Lord who wear pants sometimes, right? Advaita Chandra. So, so these are not essential items, but they're helpful. It's not, I mean, I'm not against devotees. They're helpful sometimes to remember Krishna, like tilak, neck beads, all these things are essential, are helpful in remembering Krishna. They're actually adjuncts. But the chanting of Hare Krishna should not be compared to any of these other activities. Chanting Hare Krishna is a yuga dharma. So it's not a ritual. It's not a ritual because in it, you know, it's not something you give up. Just like, for example, I'm a sannyasi. Well, I'm dressed as a sannyasi. So it's in the spiritual world, I give it up. I have to give it up. If I just go back to the spiritual world and say, Krishna, I'd still like to be a sannyasi here. Krishna's going to say, no sir, no sir. You're not allowed in here. But, you know, it's helpful. It's helpful to be in Krishna conscious for me, not for everybody. And so, but eternal things are things like chanting the Lord's holy names, or dressing the deities, things like that. These are eternal activities that go on in the spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, they're always chanting. Okay. And the next offense is to instruct the faithless about the glories of the holy name. That means whenever we talk to people, we should ascertain where they're at, what they're ready to hear. As it says in the Bible, Jesus Christ said, I have much to tell you, but you cannot bear to hear it. So we have to be really careful what we tell people. And not that we're hiding anything, that's not the point. But, you know, if you tell people too much about Krishna, you know, okay, you have to surrender to Krishna. You know, imagine you go out on the street and you say, you have to surrender to Krishna. And if you're eating meat, fish, and eggs, you're a demon. And that's what they did to me. I wasn't eating meat, fish, or eggs. But when I first went into a Hare Krishna temple, they told me that I was a demon. And, you know, I looked at my teeth. And they weren't fangs, because the dentist had taken out my wisdom teeth. So, you know, I didn't feel like a demon. They said, but if you don't join immediately, you're going to be as short as a dwarf, living underground, eating human flesh. Kali Yuga is coming. Jackals, the she-jackals are vomiting fire. That's a quote from the Bhagavatam. And I said, get me out of here. So it took me 2 more years to join the Hare Krishna movement because of that preaching. So we have to be careful to attract people, not to push people, but to attract. Like Krishna is attracted. Krishna, he attracts. He doesn't push. He attracts. Okay. And also the last offense is to not have complete faith in the holy name and maintain material attachments even after understanding some of the instructions in the matter. So it's not offensive to have material attachments, or else all of us would be big offenders. But we should try our best to engage in the process of anartha nivritti, which is praying to Krishna. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patita mam vishame pamam buddha. Kripaya tava parapankaja stita kilisandra chintya. Krishna, I'm your eternal servant. Please pick me up and fix me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. I'm trapped in this horrible material world. You know, so this is, it requires some humility to pray like that. So anyway, so yes, we should be aware of our anarthas, unwanted things like lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, and pray to Krishna. Try our best. Like if you have dirt in your house, clean the house, just don't lament. Don't be like I was when I was a young boy. I would just sweep the dirt under the rug. Because I was a very rebellious kid. You know, I didn't never like to do what my mother said. So anyway, and then also Bhaktivinoda Thakur says underlying or surrounding all these 10 offenses is the inattention while chanting. So how does one become attentive while chanting? It's important, at least from my particular perspective, to have a sankalpa, to understand why you were chanting, what you're chanting, you know, why you're chanting. Not simply, I have to chant because I've made a vow to chant 16 rounds a day, and Yamaraj will come and get me if I don't chant my 16 rounds today. Anyway, so it's not a good reason, and you won't be in touch with the holy names. But, you know, whatever the reason is, from your heart. I'm chanting because in the beginning you may be chanting, as Krishna says, people come to him because they're in misery. People come to him because they want money. People are coming to him because they're inquisitive. People are coming to him because they want knowledge. In the beginning you may have some ulterior motive. Be honest about it. And in the Bhagavatam it says, Akama Sarvakama Moksha Kamadara Dita Graina Bhakti Yogena Yasheta Purushaparam, that whatever your desire is, just reveal it to Krishna. Reveal it to Krishna. Like Dhruva Maharaj, he revealed his desire to Krishna and then he ultimately attained pure devotional service. So anyway, so those are the offenses. And to really come to the stage of pure devotional service, it is required to study Lord Chaitanya's Shikshashtaka. Each and every verse of the Shikshashtaka refers to a different stage in devotional service, and also some of the Acharya state refers to a different time in Krishna's day, the Ashtakali Leela. So study the Shikshashtaka to understand these things. Then, if one really wants to make super fast advancement, that means on the fast track, then we take hint from what Krishna says in the Gita. One who teaches this Bhagavad Gita, the devotees, is most dear to me, and there will never be one more dear to me than he or she who teaches this Krishna consciousness. That means either you teach directly or you help the teaching or spreading of the movement. As Srila Prabhupada did, following the order of his spiritual master, taking the austerity at a very old age, of course I'm older now, so, but I'm not ready for any austerities. But taking an austerity at a very old age, of going to the West to fulfill the desire of a spiritual master to create a revolution in the misdirected lives of an impious civilization. Our movement is meant to change the world. And the Acharyas won't be fully satisfied until the Supreme Court justices are wearing tilak and the President of the United States is wearing tilak. That I want to see. I want to see. But anyway, so yeah, we have a mission, and it's very exciting. Because if you think about your purpose in life, you know, everybody should think about why or what is my ultimate purpose. You know, and if the answer is just to make enough money to support myself, that's boring. And so my children will grow up, and they'll have children, and then the children will have children, and the children who have children will have children, and the children will have children will, sorry about that. And I'll have children, and I can play with all my great-great-grandchildren until for time immemorial. So, nothing wrong with playing with your grandchildren, but that's not the purpose of life. You know, you want to contribute something to society. When you leave this world, you want to think, I did something. I helped some people in a permanent way. Not just blowing on the boil, so to speak. Because people are suffering because of karma, but actually helping them out of that situation so they can progress. Maybe they won't go back to God in this life, but so they can make some progress. I mean, that's very satisfying. Oh, charging. Yeah, there's a charge the camera. We're still online. But that's actually very satisfying to think like that I contributed to someone's eternal happiness, isn't it? Wow. And beyond that, and connected with that, is I contributed to the pleasure of my spiritual masters, Divine Grace Srila and Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, who's the founder and chair of our International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and our ultimate source of inspiration. Like that. And sometimes the uncle is nicer. So the uncle's in my Spanish. Anyway, sometimes the uncle, well, in my case, sometimes I'm nicer to the actual, I'm nicer to people who aren't initiated by me. Because now I'll get some people who don't want to take initiation today when they hear that one. So, no, we're all part of one family. And that's really Prabhupada's desire. I am a servant of Prabhupada. And that's Prabhupada's desire. Anything else will actually displease Prabhupada. Anything else. Consider, these disciple groups. We're not. I mean, we're all part of the same family. We help each other. Uncles, aunts, god cousins, god sisters, god brothers. What else? Did I miss somebody? No. Great-grandparents, great-grand-godparents, whatever. Pitamaha, Pitamahi. So anyway, we're all in together. I just see everybody equal. So, and I'm just serving Prabhupada by initiating people into Krishna consciousness. It's my service. I am, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you think you're a guru, you're a guru. In other words, we're servants. Bharta Padakamala, Dasa Dasa, Dasamu Dasa. So anyway, so that's without going into further talks about this. That's what initiation is, and we're joining, initiated, to become part of this wonderful mechanism, whatever, and movement to carry out Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada's mission around the world. And I'm very excited to be part of this mission. I couldn't imagine my life not being part of this mission. We'll always stay within ISKCON. Devotees are saying, we always stay loyal in ISKCON. We can respect every other religion. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that. Every other branch of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we respect them. We fall at their feet. But we are part of Prabhupada's mission. It's a great mission. My connection with Prabhupada is very strong, as everybody does. And I'm requesting that of all the devotees here who are taking the initiation, just to be connected to Prabhupada as their life and soul. All right, so we will continue. Is that right, Aditya? I actually work for him. Because he's a real Vaishnava. I just make a show of being a Vaishnava. Okay, so we want to first of all call the devotees who were initiated by Radha Govinda Maharaj up to take their vows. And the way, I'll call them one by one. The way we do this is they will offer obeisances to Prabhupada. Of course, they can do that from a distance since there's so many devotees there next to Prabhupada and to the deities. And they come to me at that point, and we'll ask them to recite the 4 regulated principles and how many rounds they're chanting every day. So first, should we call them by their spiritual name now, or they've already got their spiritual name, or what? It's up to you.
I think it would be good to announce the spiritual name after the vote.
First is Rahul and Bhavana. And then the deities. Okay. Very nice. So, Rahul, what are the 4 regular principles?
No illicit, no illicit sex, No gambling and no intoxication.
And how many rounds every day?
And minimum 16 rounds.
Minimum 16, and you can chant more on the Tulasi, so it's good. So you're promising to your spiritual master Radha Govinda Maharaj and to his finder Srila Prabhupada, and your name, and you've already got your beads, right?
Yeah, they are coming.
They're coming. Your name is Rohini Nandana Das. And Ravana, what are the four regulative principles?
No meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, and no intoxication.
And have how many rounds every day?
16 rounds every day and more.
Minimum, and try to chant more on the Kadasi if you can. And so, your name is Baba Mai Devi Das. Very nice. Very, very nice. Congratulations. It's a nice question. All right, Shivali is next. Where is she? Oh, there she is. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama. Okay, and so she's initiated Radha Govinda Maharaj, and so what are the four regulative principles?
No meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, and no gambling.
Okay, and how many rounds every day?
Minimum 16 rounds, Maharaj.
Yeah, and if you can chant more in the Kadasi,
Yes.
it's very wonderful. So your name, given to you by Radha Govinda Maharaj, is Shri Radhe Devi Das. Okay, and very nice. Radha Govinda Maharaj is a wonderful devotee. This is a wonderful devotee. So next is Krishna Mohan, followed by his wife. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, go, Govinda, go, Govinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, wonderful devotees. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gauranga. Okay, so Mr. Mohan, what are the four regular principles?
No meat eating, no intoxication, no sex, no illicit sex,
Okay.
and no gambling.
Gambling. And how many rounds?
Minimum of 16.
Minimum 16, and try to chant more on the Kadasi. Usually it's good to chant 25 if you have time. You know, obviously, sometimes you're working. On the Kadasis, I try to chant 64 rounds if I don't have to go to work that day. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I have to work every day. Before COVID, I could just work GBC meetings when I went there.
Okay.
And now, because of this wonderful Zoom, my work day begins some days at 4 o'clock in the morning till late at night. And like tomorrow morning, I have to attend a marriage in India. It will last 3 hours. It begins at 3:30 in the morning. I'll go to Bangalore if you do. No, it won't be an eclipse there. At that time.
Here it is.
Yeah, there it's all right. All right, so here you get your beads with your right hand. Your name now is Mohanananda Das. And how many rounds every day?
Minimum 16.
Minimum 16 rounds, and try to chant more in the Kasi if you can. See what's practical, but it's, what I experience is when I chant 64 rounds, my whole life changes. It's just like, then the next day, chanting 16 rounds is like just the beginning, basically. So it really sets up a pattern, but I'm not saying you have to chant 64 rounds, but it does create a different mood in devotional service. So, let's see. Oh, here's your name. Your name now, beads with your right hand, is Lavanga Manjari Devi Dasi. She's one of the Manjaris, not that you are, but you're a servant of one of the Manjari gopis, the young girls who serve Radha Krishna. Very nice. Okay. And next is Sarojini. So some of the elder devotees, I'm not going to ask about the regulated principles, at least he was sexual. I'll probably just ask about the rounds. Be like if I was taking the dishes. Hare Krishna, Prabhupada, Jai. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. I just asked you about the rounds. How many rounds every day? Kitna rounds?
16 rounds every day, sir.
Okay. And if you're chanting more, right, usually?
Yeah.
Someone said you were chanting 100 rounds. Maybe you should be giving me a shake. Okay, you can come closer because I can't throw beads. Get the beads with your right hand. Your name now, this is the name of Radharani, is Surangi Devi Das. Surangi means she who has beautiful limbs, which is Radharani. Surangi Devi Das Jai. And next is Smarana. It's very encouraging to see our second, third generation devotees take initiation. It's just like, it's ecstatic. Because we know that there's a future. And actually, before you offer obeisances, please offer obeisances to your mother and father. Champaka Lata Auntie. It takes a village to raise a child. So all these devotees are working together for the purpose of serving Srila Prabhupada. Very good dancer. Thank you for dancing. Okay, so what are the 4 regular principles?
No gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no eating.
That's good, remember that.
Yeah, I'm gonna forget.
Her mother said she's nervous, maybe. And how many rounds?
Minimum 16.
Minimum 16. Try to chant more on the Kadasi. Study, pursue your education, don't become a fanatic devotee. Get as much education as you can while you're young. It's very important.
Yes, moving on.
Okay, so you can come close to get the beads. That really scared me. So, actually, do you want smaller beads or bigger beads? I got 2 sets here.
Smaller.
Smaller. Okay, they're not that small. So there's a very special name. There's no one in the movement who has this name. And I checked it with my Sanskrit experts to make sure it's all right, because it's just, I just checked all over. Nobody has this name. Okay, so get the beads with your right hand. Your name now is Radha Smarna. That name, it's not the name of a specific gopi, but it's the name indicates she's the servant. Radha Samana Devi. Just actually Dasi, just Dasi Radha Devi, because it's the name of a particular remembering Srimati Radharani, and also it indicates, according to Sanskrit experts, who I'm not, it also indicates she who was the servant of Radharani who remembers Krishna. Radha is remembrance of Krishna. Pretty special name, isn't it? And I checked to see if I knew anyone else who had that name. I couldn't find anyone in the whole world. The way I check is on Facebook. And also Prabhupada's database, and all these different databases. But it is a bona fide name. It's really beautiful. I just inspired. Okay, so on that happy note, we can continue.
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations to everybody.
So everyone please take 3 drops of water in your right hand. You can add green. Add the rice cream. Add the grains into the water. Om Tat Sat Shri Govindo 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 Asyam Sudhatito Achyuta Gotra. Now you all will say your initiated names. Your whole names. Naunga Mandirasi. Shri Krishna Prityartham Upanayam Samskara Karmaham Karishyami. And let the water just flow through your fingers onto the ground. Don't feel this fight. So now everyone will change. You only have changed. Everyone here will change their neck beads. So some devotees can come and help the initiates change their beads. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, They already changed. You can change. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kumaro Vatu Kamadeva Daya Shishra Mahapati Deva Helana Devashi Varya Purusharchanata Kurma Harihi Mam Nirayat Asheshat. क्षमासि अवयामि स्थापयामि प्रभु कृपया स्वागतं कुरु लभते दृष्टि ओम तत् विष्णु परम पदम सदा पश्यन्ति सूर्या दिव्या चक्षुराततां तत् प्रसव विष्णव जागृतां च समिन्दति विष्णुर्यत् परम पदम अहं पितुरहं यज्ञा स्वाधायमहम् औषधं मन्त्रमहम् एजाव्यम् अहम् अग्निरहं भूताम् Swaha idam anantaya idam namah. So everyone can repeat after me. All the initiates, you'll offer grains into the fire when I say Swaha, and you'll use these fingers. So Mati, you can come in closer of the light. So offer it to the fire. You're okay. Come to come in. Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Urmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Swaha 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 Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Padamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Swaha 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 Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Swaha 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 Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate V. Krishna Das Goswami Iti Namine Namo Hamsa Vikashaya Prabhupada Priyayate Sudriddha Sudhinishtabhyam Tasya Vakyanuvadine Swaha 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 Namo
Vishnupadaya
Vishnupadaya
Krishna Prasthaya
Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate
Radha Govind Goswami
Radha Govinda Goswami Iti Namine Namaste
Prabhupada
Devam
Gauravani
Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi
Gramya Jan
Nishtarine
Swaha
Swaha Swaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे स्वाहा 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 नमः विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती इति नामिने श्री वासवानवि देवी दयिताय कृपादे कृष्ण संबंध विज्ञान गायने प्रभवे नमः माधुर्य उज्ज्वल प्रेमाद्या श्री रूपानुग भक्तिदा श्री गौर करुणा शक्ति विग्रहाय नमोस्तुते नमस्ते गौरवाणी श्री मूर्तये दीनतारिणे रूपनुगा विरुद्धाप सिद्धांत द्वंद्वहारिणे स्वाहा 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 नमो गौरकिशोराय साक्षात् वैराग्य मूर्तये विप्रलंबर सांबोधे पदाम्बुजाय ते नमः स्वाहा 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 नमः भक्ति विनोदाय सच्चिदानंद नामिने गौर शक्ति स्वरूपाय रूपनुग वरायते स्वाहा 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 गौरविर्भाव भूमेस्त्वं निर्देष्ट सजना प्रिया वैष्णव सर्वभौमा श्री जगन्नाथाय ते नमः स्वाहा 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 वंचाकल्प तरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्यः एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः स्वाहा 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 नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेमा प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौर तुषे नमः स्वाहा 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 पंचतत्वाकवं कृष्ण भक्तरूप स्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्त शक्तिकं स्वाहा 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 हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपे Gopesha, Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta, Namostute, Swaha, Swaha, Swaha. Jayatam, Suratorpangor, Mama, Mandarmate Gati, Matsarvasya, Padam Bhoja, Radha Madana Mohana, Swaha, Swaha, Swaha. Divya Vrindaranya, Kalpatrumadha, Srimad, Ratnagara, Simhasanasto, Srimad Radha, Srila Govinda Deva, Reshtalibi, Sevyamano, Smarami. Swaha, Swaha, Swaha. Shriman Rasarasarambhi Vamshivata Tatastita Karshana Venu Svane Gopi Gopinata Shrestunaha Swaha Swaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tapta Kanchana, Gaurangi, Radhe, Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanu, Sute Devi, Pranamami, Hari Priye, Swaha, Swaha, Swaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Radhara, Shivasadi, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Swaha, Swaha, Swaha. Om Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Swaha 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 Om Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Swaha 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 Om Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Swaha 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 Now everyone can stand up and hold the banana between your hands. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So please repeat. Om Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmana, Hitaya Cha, Jagatitaya, Krishnaya, Govindaya, Namo Namaha, Om Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmana, Hitaya Cha, Jagatitaya, Krishnaya, Govindaya, Namo Namaha, Om Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmana, Hitaya Cha, Jagatitaya Krishnaya, Govindaya, Namo Namaha, Swaha. So you can slowly come and place the banana not on the fire but very close to the fire. So very slowly. Oh शांति अंतरिक्ष शांति पृथ्वी शांति आपः शांति वायु शांति तेजः शांति औषध्य शांति लोकः शांति शांतिरस्तु स्थितिरस्तु ओम शांति शांति शांति. You can offer the remaining grains which you have just on the side. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,